Hello, I'm Adam Kozord, and this is your pearl of truth for today. In 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 18 through 20, the Apostle Paul finishes that first chapter by writing, "This charge I commit to you, son Timothy, according to the prophecies previously made concerning you, that by them you may wage the good warfare, having faith and a good conscience, which some having rejected concerning the faith have suffered shipwreck, of whom are Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I delivered to Satan, that they may learn not to blaspheme." Consider for just a moment this idea of shipwrecking our faith, of taking the faith in a proverbial sense and having it dashed against the storms of life. How do we keep our faith from falling apart? How do we keep it from being shipwrecked? Well, Paul here talks about the two elements that are necessary in order to keep that from happening. Number one, we've got to be sure that we keep a strong faith. Our faith has to be rooted and grounded not just in wishful thinking and in vague ideals. It has to be rooted in truth and confidence. We read in Hebrews chapter 11 and in verse 6 that without faith it is impossible to please God. Because the one who comes to God has to believe that he is and that he's a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. We have to be fully confident in what it is that we believe and why. We need to know for certain that those things are truth and not just fantasies that we hope for. But also, if we're going to have a faith that stands, we've got to have a good conscience. The idea of a conscience has often been described as a moral compass. But notice that Paul says we have to have a good conscience. You see, it's possible to have a bad conscience. It is possible to have a conscience that is going to misguide us instead of lead us in the way that we need to go. If we're going to have the right kind of conscience, it has to be a conscience that is guided by truth. Many people want a conscience today that is guided by emotion or feelings, and whatever it is I'm feeling at a particular time, that is what I'm going to follow because that's what's going to make me happy. Yet, Paul says we need a good conscience. A good conscience is one that is guided by truth. It is one that is rooted in the principles of right and wrong. It is one that is not going to turn away from fact or righteousness just because I have a feeling or an emotion that might send a different direction. The conscience has to be rooted in God's Word. It has to be trained to recognize right from wrong, good and evil. It needs to be focused on making sure that righteousness is the key concept, not momentary pleasure. Those who do not keep a good conscience, those who do not train a good conscience, will wind up having a shipwrecked faith. They'll wind up being like Hymenaeus and Alexander here in these verses, who are now speaking against God instead of working with God. We need to be sure that we follow Paul and Timothy's example, and that we are ones who hold up our faith, who know what we believe and why based on the truth of God's Word, not man's opinions, but that also we have trained our conscience because we desire to do what is right, not what is easy. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you'll take this pearl of truth with you.